What's up guys, Tucker here from Electric Cycle Rider. I'm in Colorado and today I'm doing another head-to-head comparison test. You guys asked for this one. It's the Sur-Ron X versus the KTM Freeride E-XC. I've got a single track loop built out and I'm gonna run both bikes around that track 5 times each. And we'll figure out what the fastest lap time is on both bikes and compare those two. To do that, I'm using this LitPro GPS tracking device. That'll tell me my lap times around the track, and we'll see which bike's fastest. Now the difference of these bikes is this Sur-Ron weighs 120 pounds and has 6 kilowatts of power. The KTM, on the other hand, has a peak output of 18 kilowatts, but it weighs 250 pounds. So two totally different bikes here. There's a difference in suspension, there's a difference in brakes, and we're gonna see how they stack up against each other. All right, let's see what these bikes can do. All right, guys, gonna start out on the Sur-Ron X and put the first 5 laps in on this thing. All right, let's talk about this bike a little bit because it's not completely stock. I'm running the 21-inch front from Wicked Wheel Werks. You can probably see I've got the XC gear, Hammerhead stem on here. At the moment that I'm filming this, still a prototype, but was just talking to them yesterday and these stems will be ready for the Sur-Ron really soon. And this Hammerhead stem is paired with the Protyper 3-inch rise bars. This is the limited black edition, so it came with the Rockshox Boxxer, and there's some volume reducers or spacers in there, which help the feel of the fork. Also, a Fox Vanilla rear shock that's utilizing the standard coil that came on the D&M shock from the factory from Sur-Ron. And I gotta give credit to my man Alan Keith because he did those upgrades on this bike. Another noteworthy addition is this ride-by-wire throttle right here. Shouldn't take my hands off the bars, I'm going real fast, but this is an electronic throttle that Sur-Ron just sent me. They call it the ride-by-wire throttle, and so there's no cables. It's all electronic, you just plug it in, and it's working really good. I've got a Pirelli Scorpion 21-inch tire up front and a 19 Maxxis in the rear. I've got Shimano brake pads in here, still utilizing the stock brakes. Running the heavy-duty Michelin tubes in here, running about 13 PSI in those, so getting some good traction. Those heavy-duty tubes help a lot. The stock ones are so thin. The other thing too is I took the O-ring chain off and put a standard 420 chain on here. That non-O-ring chain is a little bit louder but provides less drag, so that's a good thing. It's like super quiet to begin with, so this is where the Sur-Ron shines. It's just so light. These corners are really easy on the light bike. And back open to some real high-speed stuff where I basically stay tapped for a good 15 to 20 seconds. I'm maxed out right here, and this is where it pays to have that 48-tooth sprocket because it's about the best top speed I'm going to get for this section.
Now the downfall of the 48 tooth sprocket is stuff like this right here, where I'm fully tapped, and I wish I had more acceleration because it's working hard to get up these hills. You can't really tell on the GoPro, but there's a bit more elevation here than it seems. Log. Obviously, it would be nice to run a bigger 54 or 60 tooth sprocket in the rear, but I'd give up a lot of top end on these faster sections, so it's definitely a trade-off. I've tested the others and I do like the torque, but you lose a bit of top end speed with those bigger sprockets. All right guys, just finished my 5 laps on the Sur-Ron X, and my best time out of those 5 laps was 3 minutes and 5 seconds. I think that was pretty good. I felt pretty fast on it. You know, I always say this about this bike, but your line selection is crucial. You really have to carry your momentum through the corners and pick your lines wisely, especially on some of the rockier sections. You can't just kind of plow through stuff, so you really have to select your lines wisely. So yeah, best time 3 minutes and 5 seconds. I'm gonna hop on the KTM Freeride E-XC right now, and we'll see what type of lap times I can lay down on that bike. All right, time to get on the Freeride E-XC. You immediately notice the power difference between these two bikes. Freeride does weigh twice as much, but it's got basically 3 times the power. And that's really noticeable, especially in these corners. But I will say, it's not as easy to turn as the Sur-Ron for that same reason. Now the modifications to this bike are a lot fewer than the Sur-Ron. I changed the tires to Michelin Starcross tires. These Michelin Starcross are awesome. I'm hooking up way better, getting more power to the ground. I might be burning more battery that way, but it's a better experience for sure. I'm running a medium compound up front and a soft in the rear. If I were to do it again, I'd also run a medium in the rear for this terrain, because this is a bit more mixed. Now the other thing that I'm running is a Nihilo Concepts oversized rear brake kit. So that gives you an adapter to run a full-size brake on this bike, and I'm also running their rotor with it. Now this oversized brake is much better than the stock, but I still prefer a foot brake. I feel like I still want to put a foot brake on this thing. And you can do that. I just haven't done it yet. I wanted to test this first. I think the reason is it's just hard to stop a 250-pound bike with your 2 fingers. I really rely on the weight of my body to put pressure on that brake lever. The right hand turns, it's definitely better to have the handbrake, but I don't know. I've managed to get through it my whole life, so why change now? Another thing with this bike is the suspension. I think it's better than the Sur-Ron stock, but still a lot of work to be done on this, and that's something I'm in the process of working on right now, is getting the suspension set up better, because this suspension is also off of an 85. They're 43 millimeter forks, which are kind of wimpy, especially for a bike this weight. So I feel like I could be even faster on this bike if I had better suspension, but the same can be said for the Sur-Ron. The Sur-Ron has pretty good suspension now, but can always be better, or it can usually be better. Now I'm running in power mode 3 on this bike. That's what I like to run it in. It's a good bike. It's definitely more of a dirt bike than the Sur-Ron. I mean, to be expected, but just rides more like a dirt bike. I'm gonna have to do a comparison with the two-stroke because I feel pretty fast on this bike. I might be faster on this than the two-stroke.
All right, guys, just finished up my test of 5 laps with the KTM Freeride E-XC, and my best time was 2 minutes and 52 seconds. So that's 13 seconds faster than the Sur-Ron's best time. Pretty noticeable. That's about the same gap that I had between the Sur-Ron and the 250 SXF factory edition. So that's a big jump. You know, this is basically a bone stock Freeride E-XC. The suspension is better than the Sur-Ron in this type of stuff, but it still needs a lot of work. I feel like this bike could stand to be improved even more than the Sur-Ron could be at this point. The Sur-Ron that I'm testing is not the $3,600 one that's for sale right now. It's got the Rockshox Boxxer on it, and it's got the 21-inch front wheel from Wicked Wheel Werks, different tires, tubes, bars, stem. So it's been updated a bit. That being said, the KTM is still a lot more money. You know, the KTM is basically triple base price what the Sur-Ron would cost. So it should be a bit beefier. It should be a bit faster, and it is. Yeah, outside of that, pretty interesting. My heart rate on the Sur-Ron was 167, whereas on the KTM, I was at 176. So I don't know if it was the added weight of the KTM to muscle that thing around, or just the fact that I was going at a faster rate of speed that bumped my heart rate up on the KTM. But I thought that that was pretty interesting. Outside of that, yeah, both great bikes. I mean, there's different categories for different riders. Just because the Sur-Ron is not as fast on this trail does not mean that it's not as good of a bike. It's just that for these types of conditions, on this track, on this trail, the Sur-Ron is a little bit slower than the KTM. The KTM has 3 times the power, twice the weight, but it's noticeable. Out of corners, it really has a lot more power to it. So it would be really interesting to put the bigger controller on the Sur-Ron and test the same, do the same test here with some extra power and see what the differences are. But I don't have one of those, so maybe when I get one I can try it. Now, if there's any more electric bikes that you guys want to see go head to head, please let me know. I appreciate the feedback, and thanks as always for watching. And it's been